afternoon, and welcome to Cape Media News Insights. I'm here this evening with Julian Cyr, State Senator for Cape Cod and the Islands. Welcome.
Good to be with you, Helen, and welcome to Cape Cod. This is what, you're 5 months into your
5
tenure.
months in, yeah.
It's good to be back in the studio. This is a space we spent quite a bit of time in. I've done debates here and lots of interviews, but took a little hiatus in the pandemic.
Right.
But glad to be back, and we're lucky to have you. Someone who's got quite a bit of experience.
Absolutely.
Coming to us from Watertown, so just thrilled you can be here, and thrilled you found housing on Cape Cod. That's the.
I am thrilled. I am thrilled, but I'm really excited to sit down with you, knowing that you were born and raised here on the Cape, and you did mention you left for a little while, but you came back and you represented us in the State House, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, this is hard to believe. I'm now serving my 4th term, so I'm still the young guy, but I first ran in 2016. It was not probably supposed to be the state senator, someone like my profile. I was a 30-year-old queer candidate from the smallest town on Cape Cod. Probably someone else should probably have that seat, but we worked really hard, and we knocked lots of doors and had lots of conversations, and a lot of the challenges that we were talking about in 2016 and then 2018, we've been working on ever since. The housing crisis,
right.
The needs for us to really steward our fragile environment, deal with wastewater, grappling with the opioid epidemic and the mental health crisis, and loads more of other challenges and issues. And so, it's hard to believe this is now my 7th year representing the 19 communities across Cape Cod and the Islands, which is a pretty special place and a pretty remarkable honor.
That's great. I love it. I'm so excited because it's community, and what better place than on the Cape to discuss things that actually embrace what every town in Massachusetts is going through. Everybody is experiencing the opioid addiction, or experiencing housing costs, maybe not to this extreme, but Boston and the surrounding areas are going through it just as much as our small communities are.
Yeah, most all of Eastern Massachusetts really has a housing crisis. We've had a housing crisis for some time. Here on Cape Cod and on Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, this is something that's been around for really 20 years, right? I remember being in middle school reading about this issue. I was, of course, always one of those kids who'd read the newspaper and not do other things, I guess. But really what has happened with the housing market, across Eastern Massachusetts, but particularly in our neck of the woods, it's been a problem for 20 years. The pandemic put the housing crisis on steroids, right? So we saw a 20% increase in housing, the price of a single-family home in Barnstable County in a single year. And that has really kept up. At this point, if you are able to afford the median mortgage, or the mortgage for a median home on Cape Cod, your household needs to make essentially $200,000 at least. And that's if you can compete against, second homeowners, right, this luxury real estate market. Right. And so we've got a real existential crisis. We now know that more than 50% of our workforce is commuting over the bridges. The Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce did a study, and we now know that more of our workforce is coming over the bridge to work than actually live here. And when you make your life on a peninsula or islands, in the case of Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, right, it's not like, that commuting can only work so far, right? So we've got a real acute crisis. You really see this, in my neck of the woods. If you come to Truro and Provincetown and Wellfleet, I know 17 people who left the Outer Cape last summer. So we're trying to do a lot on this, and really encouraged, Governor Healy and Lieutenant Governor Driscoll have really made housing affordability and the cost of living in Eastern Massachusetts really a cornerstone. So this legislative session and the new session, I've put forward a number of housing-related policies. We're trying to establish a transfer fee on luxury real estate sales to finance affordable and particularly workforce housing.
Right.
Most of the programs that exist, the state and federal programs for housing, are geared towards affordable housing. So that means you have to make 80% or less of area median income. We need to do that here on Cape Cod, and we need to keep building affordable housing developments. But we also, because of the cost of housing here, we need to provide subsidy of housing for our workforce. I hear from municipalities all the time, right? They can't hire that planner, that police officer, that firefighter. Was just with Carol Woodbury at the DY schools, right? The beautiful gleaming new school. Got to talk about that, which I visited. But hiring teachers, right? Big challenge.
Right.
You're running a skilled nursing facility or a hospital or a restaurant, like my family did. Workforce has become the crisis. So a transfer fee on luxury real estate, basically home sales over $2 million,
Right.
say, having a transfer fee on that you could then use to fund both affordable housing and that workforce housing that we don't have a good revenue stream, right, to make that happen. We're also looking to, we have a myriad of other kind of policies we're trying to advance, allow communities to buy deed restrictions on homes to keep them year round, allow communities to have right of first refusal on foreclosed homes, have a little more assistance from the state in helping communities develop workforce housing. So housing. I will say that, hopefully we'll do some big things on Beacon Hill this session on housing,
Right.
but most decisions on land use and zoning are made at the local level, right? They're made
Right.
at town meeting, they're made by the town council. So this is why it's really important that viewers who care about this issue, and every Cape Codder should care about this issue, right?
Absolutely.
Because if you need help, you got a loved one at home who needs help, basic medical services maybe, or maybe you're a parent who has a child with developmental disabilities, and they're living in a program here, and they're hoping to stay on Cape Cod, or you hope you're able to just go out to dinner on a Monday night. If you care about workforce, you got to care about our workforce, and you got to care about housing. But we need to remind folks that so many of these decisions are at the local level. So tell your select board members and planning boards and zoning boards that we need to get really aggressive on building the housing that we need here, on redevelopment in our existing downtowns, and then also increasingly, I think, preserving housing, right? Finding ways
Right.
to make sure that housing is available for year-round working people, like you
Right.
and everyone who works here.
And another important element to that is when people live where they work, they're more likely to spend those monies back into their economy, and that would help us sustain a year-round community, year-round flow of money, cash coming into
yeah.
to our businesses,
Yeah.
which our businesses need.
And precisely, and for Cape Cod, right? We're pretty local, right? This is
Right.
this is as local as it gets, right?
Absolutely.
So there really is a robust small business sector here. I grew up and came out of that. My family had a restaurant in a seasonal restaurant in Truro for 28 seasons, and that's really kind of key to our local economy.
It is.
The other piece that's really crucial around housing that we've got to get we've been getting serious about, but we need to keep up the initiative is around wastewater. So Cape Cod has a $4 billion wastewater problem. We've been trying to solve that problem. And actually, from a state perspective, we brought in pretty significant resources. So in 2018, I led an effort with State Representative Sarah Peake and the entire legislative delegation, then Representative Whalen and others, to establish the Cape Cod and Islands Water Protection Fund. So this issues a 2.75% surcharge on all room occupancy, hotels, motels, short-term rentals. The fund has already been, it's in effect, it's been a tremendous success. It's already provided $98 million in subsidy for wastewater projects across the region. That's other people's money
Right.
that property owners, taxpayers here don't have to come up with to fund these wastewater projects. But the wastewater piece is crucial. The state is taking action, I think, to tighten requirements for communities to get serious about the nitrogen pollution that we have in our embayments, the phosphorus pollution we have in our freshwater lakes and ponds. We've got to tackle this.
Right.
And also considering, look, the product we're selling in the global marketplace is say, hey, come to Cape Cod, right? Come to Yarmouth, come to Dennis, come to Barnstable,
Right.
enjoy our pristine beaches. The truth of the matter is they're not that pristine, and so we've got to work hard to clean those up. But I'm really proud to have worked already to make sure that we're delivering significant state dollars. I think we're trying to figure out how do we even bring more state dollars to partner with towns to move forward on these wastewater projects. What wastewater, particularly sewering systems, allow you to do as well is it allows you to build more densely or to redevelop in your existing downtowns.
Right.
And that's where we can put more housing. So there's a good synergy between workforce and solving the housing crisis and protecting our environment, cleaning up our environment and living in a more sustainable, environmentally friendly way.
And I think that just leads to a happier workforce as well when they don't have to travel across and deal with summertime traffic to get to
Exactly. Traffic, sprawl. If you look at how Cape Cod was developed, in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, we really had this suburban style development scheme, right? 1 acre, 2 acre, quarter acre lots. Right. That's not how our communities were sort of built from the kind of colonial era, where you had these very dense little downtowns and villages. You wouldn't want to build a house up on the bluff because you'd probably blow away.
Right.
But anyway, this sort of suburban style development has been a disaster for traffic. It's really lent itself to, luxury second homes or homes that are rented out, on Airbnb right. or what have you. The traffic piece, and then how we deal with wastewater, right? These Title V septic systems, they're good at keeping pathogens out of the environment, but they are not good at keeping nitrogen and phosphorus. Also, other sort of elements and chemicals that we all consume. I've been spending a lot of work trying to figure out how we remove forever chemicals called right. PFAS, per polyfluoroalkyl substances, out of our environment. When you test the groundwater in Cape Cod, you find traces of PFAS everywhere. Why is that? It's because of how we deal with our waste.
Right.
So it all kind of like ties together. But
we have like the perfect storm, is what you're really saying.
We've got some big challenges, and when you live on a peninsula that has a sole source aquifer, you've got to be really serious about protecting your water supply. You've got to be really serious about stewarding the environment.
Absolutely. And how does that tie into education here on the Cape?
So we're really lucky, in education to have phenomenal school districts and great teachers. I was actually just got a sneak peek of the new DY intermediate middle school on Station Ave in Yarmouth, and wow, that school is pretty phenomenal. What a community investment. I really encourage people to go check it out. Just the performing arts, someone who's a choir geek
right,
and
a
band kid, right? Just the performing arts and music space was pretty phenomenal to see. But really, there's a real I think, appreciation of supporting education here. So we've done a lot around supporting education. Several years ago, the legislature took up and passed the Student Opportunity Act, which is funneling over an additional $1 billion a year to our public schools. That's really benefited the Dennis Yarmouth district. It's really benefited Barnstable, but it's helped all the school districts across the region, Monomoy and Nauset and others. So that's been really critical. On the education front for this legislative session, we're working to prioritize early education and care and higher education. So the Senate passed Common Start legislation. This is a series of policies and investments to really bolster early education. We know that early education is such a good investment. By the way, it also really helps working families. My sister and sister-in-law who live in Brewster, have got a 4-year-old. They've spent quite a deal of money on early education, on childcare. Right. And that's even, my parents help out a few days a week, right? A lot of working families on Cape Cod need help with childcare, need help with early education. On the higher ed front, the Senate wants to implement free community college across Massachusetts. That's something really we think is a really good investment, an additional 2 years of education after high school. Students who enroll in community college are often, the first people in their family to go to school. And so this is an investment we're really trying to make. Governor Healy has a comparable or sort of a parallel proposal as well. So I think you're going to see us take action early in this session to support early education, to move on higher ed. We're also going to do tax reform. So Massachusetts, unfortunately, we've got some pretty regressive tax laws on the books. And I think we're trying to figure out how to expand the child family tax credit, other initiatives that help working families. And I'm trying to reform the estate tax. So the estate tax in Massachusetts, it's actually a pretty progressive tax in the way it's structured, but the threshold essentially is too low. Right. With housing values just sort of skyrocketing, the current threshold is at $1 million. Maybe a decade or two ago, it was hard for middle class families to even dream of having that amount of assets. But now, really, thanks to the real increase in property values we have here, there's a lot of Cape families that are, maybe land rich, but are cash poor. So I have a proposal that would raise the threshold from $1 million to $2 million as a trigger for the estate tax. It preserves the more progressive components of the estate tax for people who are fortunate to
Right.
have significantly more wealth. But anyway, these tax proposals are likely ones that we're hoping to see move early in the legislative session.
I think people would appreciate that.
Well, of course, especially with the the cost of goods and services with inflation, has
Absolutely.
been significant. It's not just our really astronomical housing costs, but the cost of everything. The other piece we're trying to work on is the cost of electricity and making sure that we're moving towards a clean energy future. The offshore wind projects that are coming online, Vineyard Wind
Right.
is that's going to start generating electricity by the end of this year, which is phenomenal. When it's up and running, 400,000 homes are going to be powered by this clean second the other projects that are coming online by the end of the decade, this is going to significantly reduce the cost of electricity. Massachusetts has like the second or third highest electric costs in the country. So these projects can't come soon enough.
Right.
I think in the short term, we're still sort of stuck in this pain point. We're really relying on natural gas and more expensive fossil fuel-based fuels. But with offshore wind, which Cape Cod and the islands, we are leading. Not only are we going to be reducing our electric bills, but we're going to be charting the future when it comes to clean energy. Which, look, we've got to do. The climate crisis, this is existential for us.
Right,
here.
exactly.
We're going to have to, in the coming years and decades, really change how we live in this place because of the inaction on climate for decades. So really proud to be in this state and be part of that effort. Proud to have sponsored a number of the proposals that have made it into law, and we're gonna keep at it.
That's good. I mean, we only have a short window to clean up the mess that's out there, to make it better for the next couple of generations. And I know my kids have, they're out of high school. Otherwise, I'd be excited for them to go to DY because
Exactly.
I do live in the district. But where they went to school, my son took a class in alternative energy and learned to build bio bricks and make his own hydroelectricity. And I think, those are things we've used in the past might be something we look forward to expanding. I think in the future as well. We can't ignore the issue anymore.
I actually worked on a bill with local students that actually would include a requirement that, look, we've got to be teaching about the climate crisis and climate change. The very courses that your child was a part of in whatever district
He loved
they were
it because it was hands-on.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't just learning; it was hands-on, and I think that's another aspect of education that is sometimes overlooked, is the ability for kids to actually get out and experience life and how to create things. And I'm just a fan of the arts and music. It's because it's all a part of math. I have another child who's a special ed teacher, so she would tell you that these are really important things. Music is in art are just huge in the process of learning, and being outside is huge in the process.
Well, we're thrilled to have you on Cape Cod. You get lots of opportunities to get outside. Hopefully,
I hope you will come
up to
back.
We'll do this regularly. I'm thrilled to be
Excellent.
back. I mean, we had been doing a version of this virtually, through Zoom and the magic of that. But it's really great to be back in studio and get to welcome you here. And looking forward to many more of these conversations.
Yeah. I'm just so pleased that you took me up on my offer to come on out and let's start 2023 off on the right foot.
You bet. Looking forward to it, Helen.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon on Cape Media Insights. On Cape Media News Insights. And we'll see you next time.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you.